Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our big season finale show of Fans of the Boys. And joining me, as always, right over here, right next to me on the far east coast, Mr. Don Willie.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? So glad to be here for the final episode of The Boys.
Yeah. And coming in right below us from the middle of the heartland, it's our very own Rob Stone.
What's up, everybody? It's going to be a long year before we get some answers here to what's going to be going on in between this long break, because it's a lot to digest, and I'm ready for the next season to start, man, right now, but we're just going to have to suffer for a year. Hopefully, maybe even not. Maybe it'll come out a little earlier.
Oh, that would be nice. That would be nice if there were a way to figure out the whole COVID filming situation, because we need our content. And you're right, a lot of questions to end up there. And of course, joining us right now live in the chat, Mr. Wes Sager. Hi, Wes. I know you can't say anything back here in the chat, but very nice to have you here, along with everyone else joining us in the archives. So, yes, we are diving into our big season finale for season 2 of The Boys. And kind of a different direction than we've been sort of speculating here on the show of how things were going to wrap up and where they're going to go. So first off, I kind of want to get just sort of a brief impression from you guys. What did you think about the finale, and what did you think? Did it work for you? Were you satisfied with the way that things up the whole season? You know, I mean, just kind of a brief run over here real quick before we get into specifics. Just sort of want to see what your guys' just impression of the finale was. And Rob, let's start things off with you. What was your thoughts here on watching the finale?
Well, the day that it came out, my family really loved it. I could hear them screaming and shouting, and after it was over, they really wanted to talk about it. I said, well, I'm not watching it till day of, but they loved it.
Okay.
I thought it was fine. It was all right. It didn't really, like, it had some excellent moments, but in the end, and it has some good questions to be answered next year. But for the most part, I didn't really care for pretty much the way the direction we're headed. But I did like everything that dealt with Stormfront. I thought that was great.
Good. Excellent. What about yourself, Don? What did you think about the finale? How did that wrap up the season for you?
I mean, I thought it was good because it seemed to end the story from season 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. Like, we got, Butcher's arc, we got Starlight's arc, we got Huey's arc. I mean, basically the Boys and the Seven, we got their arcs for the most part, but then it still was able to set things up going forward. We got the whole thing with the Congresswoman. Where does that lead? Now that Homelander is basically kind of almost free but still on a leash, where does that lead? What is Stan Edgar's big plan? What about the Deep?
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, personally, I think they wrote this in a way that if they wanted to, they could end it and no one would be upset at the ending. But I think they left it open-ended enough that it was like, no, you can still tell more stories here without it having to always be, well, we got to refer back here to this thing, from the past season in order for you to catch up with it. I think they wrapped up enough to where it's a self-contained enough story, but still leaving enough open to, in order to be able to explore further adventures.
Sure. Sure. Well, actually, I think that's a really good point right there, because it did feel very much like, I mean, in some ways, your classic season finale is it's wrapping up storyline, but it really felt like almost all the storylines were sort of wrapped up in that sense. And I know a lot of people have talked about, in some odd ways, we are actually moving into season 3 where the boys and Butcher are at the very beginning in the comics. So in some ways, it's almost like a preview couple seasons into where the position was, comics wise, even though the stories have moved and changed. So, yeah, I mean, having you say it that way, that actually makes me feel a little better, because in some ways I was kind of in Rob's camp, I think. Not that anything was bad in it. It was just surprising to me. I was expecting they were building to a different direction. And like I said, by the end, when everything sort of felt wrapped up and, Huey's feeling better and he's on his own feet, and Kamiko and Frenchie are dancing down the streets, and Mother's Milk gets to go home to his family and get a big old smiley hug from his daughter, which was all very heartwarming. I mean, all of these things really felt sort of like an end of storyline. And as we've talked in the show, I've been expecting much more of this is the build up to this giant thing we're going to have for season 3. So I guess for my own expectations, there might be a little bit lost, but kind of see it in your ways. Like, they could wrap things up, and this does open the doors for sort of a fresh beginning of storyline. I don't know. I think that makes me feel a little bit better about it. A few more people, of course, joining us in the chat. We, of course, got Mark from Enchantment of Eternity joining us here live. West Virginia grown back with us. And, of course, our old friend Simba Trey, who's only got 4 words for y'all. Girls, get it done. Definitely one of the best parts of the episode. Very ironic, I think, in that little scene. So let's kind of run through some of the big moments and big things sort of straight from the top. Again, and talking about sort of going against expectations. The episode opens up with Compound V in demand. Everyone wants it. Police want it. Pentagon wants it. It's going to get approved. It's going to go through Congress. Not really the choice I thought they would go in, considering our last view was in a congressional hearing, had heads exploded. What did you guys think about sort of that sort of jumping? Because that really does propel, I think, sort of the whole arc of the storyline, and especially kind of when we'll focus on Stan Edgar here, how he's looking at the whole world. Don, what did you think about Compound V now? Just because of heads popping, they're going to give it to everyone. Is that the right move?
Definitely not. But wait, there's something you missed.
Oh, yeah. Go.
And that is law. That is lock the doors and windows, arm yourself, and wait for a hero. You got the school shooter kind of thing going on there, except now you got soup terrorist, and it's funny. So me being a New Yorker, right? We're used to dealing with NYPD.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe 10 years ago, I remember the first time I actually saw someone from New York City Sheriff's Department. So to see that they used New York City Sheriff for that kind of infomercial was like, oh, this is different, because it shocked the hell out of me that there was actually a New York City Sheriff at all.
I was gonna say, you guys have those there?
Yeah. There's only, but like apparently, I think there's only like 5 people that work in the office or something like that. Seriously, like they only. I think you only get to apply like once every 5 or 10 years for a job there or something like that. It's crazy.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. So the whole thing with them wanting to distribute Compound V to as many people as possible. I mean, listen, we know that Vought is a company that is all about profits, right? And so if they can find a way to maximize profits by giving more people Compound V, then hey, let's get it done.
Right.
And there was the whole thing with them trying to stabilize Compound V, and they were almost there. So imagine, they're like, oh, okay, well, cool. Now we don't even have to do it off the books anymore. Now that everyone wants Compound V, we can siphon more money from a government contract in order to ramp up and make maybe not public, but make more make it more, not even transparent, but make it, I guess, more inclusive.
Well, you don't have to hide things. Certainly with the testing and stuff, if you still need to do those last minute tweaks, you're going to have volunteers. You're going to have approval and sending. People are going to write off the book. So you don't need to have Lamplighter destroying the evidence. You just fill out a form. From 2X9V, death of subject. Oh, well.
Yeah. So, interesting. I mean, from a business standpoint, obviously, Vought is trying to be as pragmatic as possible with the way that they roll this out, because they're like, oh, okay, how many dollar signs does this bring?
West Virginia Grown is guessing $5 million for Compound V. So, well, I'm sure you could even get a bidding war done at that point. Who wants it first? We only have so much available. Rob, any thoughts there on the release of Compound V or our active shooter, active supervillain video intro?
I thought the video was pretty funny. Just standing there and just knowing, like how long, like Homelander's sitting there. Like it's the opposite of Cap's PSAs in the MCU. Where Cap was probably happy to be there, and and you can just imagine Homelander's inner monologue of being like, just why do I got to do this? I thought all that was really, really funny, and the Compound V thing, I just felt like it was a way for us to just feel more tension, and I was glad to see that it was resolved before the end of the episode.
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, I just before I even go on, I mean, or say any more. I mean, since I waited till today to watch the episode, I didn't really have any expectations going into this episode after last week. I just kind of went in blank. I don't want to give out the impression that I didn't like this episode. I just kind of turned off all of anything that I thought, because I said, like, the last thing I said last week was temper our expectations, because I think we're going to get the simplest kind of things. And I feel like that's what we got. I feel like they just kind of carried on exactly where they were going through the congressional thing. It just felt like they were going they were going to go a political direction and have a lot of this be with political characters and trying to go through the law and I could see where that was headed. So I just kind of stopped with my own inner speculation about this. But when they mentioned Compound V, I kind of had that feeling inside where I was just like, not another thing. Like I want to have some things resolved before we do this. But I was happy to see that they because of what happens with Stormfront, that got pulled back. But it's not a surprising thing in this story, because when things like this happen, a lot of times you see people go too far the other direction.
Right.
So heads get popped in Congress, start handing out the superpowers, like to go to that very, very far degree. It was an extreme reaction that I'm glad had immediately pulled back once they realized what Stormfront was really up to, or used what Stormfront was really up to forcibly pull themselves back from that.
Yeah, because I think she says that in many of the very disturbing things that she says to Homelander and later on to Ryan. is that it's about choosing who gets those. Great. Now it's loose to the public, we decide who gets it. And of course, that's always the real, difficult problem with that. No one, I think, more aware of that tenuous relationship than Stan Edgar, who had a very illuminating scene with Butcher when Butcher is trying to make the deal with Rebecca, which, again, something else we will get into in a short little bit. But I did want to touch on this since we were just sort of wrapping up this whole Vought Compound V thing. We've had speculation, is Edgar actually Vought? Does he have superpowers? Is he the guy that's head popping? How much does he know because he brought Stormfront in, and yet obviously her white agenda doesn't work with him? And I thought we got, again, like you said, Rob, in some ways a very simplistic, straightforward response, but in one, I think the most honest way is, no, he's just a really smart business guy, and he just knows which way the wind's blowing, and he knows how to take any situation, because it's all about keeping his job. Keeping his job is keeping that share price high, and that is all of his focus. And I have to say, there was something really refreshing about that, because it wasn't evil machinations. It's not, I'm planning this or I'm standing behind. It's just, look, man, we're a company. Company's about making money. That's what I focus on. Everything else I have to live with, especially what was the line that he had? It's the luxury of other men. That's the luxury of the white man. I can't remember the exact quote on that. But I thought that was actually a perfect thing in dealing with Stormfront. It's like, look, I don't have the luxury to have that complaints. I have to focus. And I really like that from him as a character, just sort of, I don't know, that approach. Now, I know this didn't line up with your he is Vought, and I'm not saying this isn't saying he isn't Vought secretly in disguise with other stuff, that there could be other reasons behind him. But what did you think of that sort of revelation, that insight into Stan Edgar there, Don? Did that seem like a satisfying answer? Are you suspecting something more?
No, you know what? I'm actually glad for once that I wasn't right. Because here's the thing. It's one of those things where you see powerful business people, right? And you hear about their ruthlessness, and you hear about the kind of laser focus that they have. And I think this is the first time in a very long time that we've seen someone who's just like, no. Nothing else matters. My personal feelings don't matter about this. It is what is going to make money. Period, point blank. I have, okay, I know that Stormfront doesn't like me, but her rhetoric is actually good for my pocket. And to have that in what is essentially a superhero story, it is refreshing, because this is not like, whenever we see the quote unquote evil businessman, he is also usually a supervillain as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think that this is the Lex Luthor that we need in this day and age. Not the raving lunatic who's like, I gotta stop Superman. Put on, the big mechanized suit, and I will be. No, he's like, no. I don't care about any of that. I'm, how much more rich am I going to be after this? Yeah. Let Stormfront spill all of her, racist propaganda that she wants to, as long as at the end of the day, I still get to make money from it.
Right.
And yes, that does make him a despicable human being. But at least he's honest about it.
Yeah.
You know, he's not doing it for any sort of ulterior motive. His whole thing is no, okay, there's a way to make money off of this, and that is my job. Period. Point blank. That is what I get up every day to do, is to make money. There is nothing else, and it's yeah. So I think that if he would have actually been Frederick Vaught, it would have taken something away from it, because now it's the whole thing of, oh, I've been alive for all this time and I've had these secret plans and yada yada yada, and it's like, no, it's better that there is no secret plan.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's a wonderful clarity with that, I think. Rob, any thoughts there on Stan Edgar's very straightforward machinations?
I think that if it had been a lesser actor, I wouldn't have liked the explanation as much. We had so many speculations about Stan Edgar because of who plays him.
Mm-hmm.
And how well he plays him and everything that he does. You know, he's so good in everything. And one of the things that they've done in this season is just throw so much at us that it's almost as if it's designed to have us all speculating about all the wild things that could be going on behind the scenes, when really, like I said, it's all turning out to be pretty straightforward and simple.
Mm-hmm.
But explained in a way that's not simple. That it's just, I mean, because it may just be business, but it's, you know, as a person of color, Stan Edgar, you know, you'd think would have problems with this, but it's so deep about just the financial part of it, and his real goal is to just make money and to do it as well as he possibly can. I would have been disappointed if he hadn't said it so well. And that made it fine for me. Plus, just the way that, you know, this relationship with Butcher has evolved, you know, without Black Noir kind of forcing a face to face instead of doing it, you know, with, you know, somebody having you by the throat over a phone call. And that, you know, there could be future negotiations with this guy. You know, going forward, they can use Stan Edgar as a possible asset in certain ways. Like if they can find something that Edgar wants, you know,
Right.
find some kind of leverage to use for him to get like advantages over him, and realize that now he's kind of giving you his cards when if it's all only about the money, you know, that's a way to squeeze.
Yeah.
Or it's a way to squeeze or to help. You know,
Well,
we
that's
can
why
give and take, and I don't know. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like Don's Lex Luthor analogy, because I think in a way that sort of that works really perfect, because he can thus interact with Butcher and the boys and everything as a balance against the Supes. They're going to do one thing. Vought wants its own. The boys, the CIA, they're going to want something else. So it does allow for this sort of great interaction. And yeah, now that Black Noir is out in a coma, wow, who knew? Just a tree nut could take that guy out. That does allow for a little bit more of that great face-to-face interaction. And you're right, with a lesser actor, it would not be as impressive. With Giancarlo Esposito, you're just like, oh yeah, man, just keep feeding that to me over the lunch there. That's better than whatever was being served on that table. Excellent. All right. So let's see. Well, I don't know. A couple of little points right here. Let's talk about Homelander for a moment. Because they did something really sweet this episode, which kind of surprised me. And was they made Homelander a caring dad. Which I wasn't expecting. I mean, when they have the scene, they're trying to, of course, impress Ryan. We're going to take you to Vought Land. I don't know, was the Hard Rock Cafe for Vought and all the fans come and cloister around. The little kid, of course, not used to actually being in the world, not used to crowds, kind of freaks out. And I love that Homelander's first instinct was to go to his kid, clear everybody out of the way, and get out of there. He didn't try to downplay it. He didn't try to push. He put his kid up. And even the scene that he had with Stormland's helpful little push there of connecting with his son and saying, hey, I was all alone and I can help teach you these things, and you don't have to be alone, and you don't have to be scared, and there can be someone for you. Considering how frightening Homelander can be, I was honestly really impressed that they were able to put that in at this drawing to show, no, I mean, in him, Homelander does want that relationship. I mean, his need for love is kind of a big recurring theme, and at the end, they almost, again, make it in a way kind of comical. But here, I thought that there was kind of an amazing little bit that they allowed to have this moment between these two characters to allow Homelander to really be a touching, caring, want to be there, want to figure out how to connect with my son, Dad. Obviously, book on with massacring Vought guards and the whole Rebecca thing and such, which is going to be our next kind of real big talk. But I don't know, Rob, what did you think about that little bit? I mean, because again, Homelander's a scary guy, and I think even when they left him when he left with Ryan at the end of last episode, was arrogant, scary guys. I mean, did you see this one coming?
No, not really. I mean, the not really comes from the level of care that he was showing. That came from, because I have a really hard time with this kind of that, because in the end, his raising of the kid would still end up being his way, and there would be so many compromises along the way. So it's like, it's hard for me to go, yeah, he really, it's like somebody who does something really bad to their kid and but still somehow loves them. And being able to
definitely be an abusive relationship.
Yeah, that sometimes it's, love is as bad as he is capable of love in some really warped way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he even fully understands it himself. How this kid could have changed his life, could have maybe put him on a different path. I don't know, Anthony Starr says a lot with his face in these scenes, especially even when he was covered in blood. It even seemed a little more sad and that almost as if, like, I would say he realizes that some of his own actions have caused this. And is there a little bit of guilt there as far as, if I hadn't done certain things a certain way, this probably wouldn't be happening to me, and I could just take my son and he and I would be able to ride off into the sunset. So in that aspect, I really did like it, especially because, again, Anthony Starr is just, give him the Emmy now, right? And, because I don't think we've ever seen any superhero ever portrayed like this, with this much complexity and emotional stuff going on in his head. Mm-hmm. That, again, a lesser actor, a lesser character, he is nothing really like the book character anymore, to me. But if you can improve upon that, then you've done a good job, and they did that here. And I think that, as much as I want to just say, like I always say, fuck him,
mm-hmm.
I can't, because there's some validity to his emotions that I do appreciate, and it wouldn't happen if Anthony Starr was a lesser actor.
Yeah. Well, chat here, right on the money with you. Wes Sager mentioning great performance by Anthony Starr. Mark over Enchantment of Eternity mentions this is what he loves about the show, how Homelander's not just a two-dimensional villain, but is complex, can relate to Ryland, and does want to be a good dad. Of course, also commenting he would be a terrible dad, though, even though he wants to do good. Envy Warren, yes, he's an effing rapist, and who wants a rapist to raise their son? Another excellent point. Rena doesn't buy it. So yeah, we've definitely have the yes, he's reaching out, he's trying to connect, but yeah, this would be a horrible relationship, and certainly he shouldn't rely on his son being there in order to motivate him to be a good person. He should try to be a good person, whether his son is there or not. But of course that is kind of a bigger Homelander issue right there. So yeah, obviously is excellent in his Anthony Starr is excellent in his facial expressions in telling a lot of story, as you mentioned, and is also commented here in the chat, especially when he is covered in blood. Those poor security guards, those poor security guards. They had to know the moment he showed up, they were like, we're all dead, aren't we?
Thoughts and prayers.
So yeah, with you there, Don, any thoughts there on Homelander's attempted dadness?
One of the more touching parts of the episode, and also it's one of those things that, honestly speaking, the scene with him talking to Ryan about his first time out in public and him being scared, and he flew away. Is it me, or have we, like, in just about any other superhero show or movie, there's never been a scene like this to me, where it's, like, you have characters having this kind of heart-to-heart, no music, no kind of pretentious stuff happening. It's someone spilling their guts out to another character and showing empathy in a way that is like, wow, because this is not something you expect out of Homelander, because for one, he is a raging narcissist, right? So for him to be able to open up to anybody, and then, like, that is his vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
His vulnerability is not a physical one. It's an emotional one. So for him to put himself out there and to say, hey, look, I went through something similar when I was your age. I was able to get over it, but look, hey, I had to go through it alone, but I'm here for you, and you don't have to go through this by yourself. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I can't think of a scene that kind of that resonated so much, or that had so much gravitas in almost any other superhero property that I've seen. I mean, and we've watched them all. So, I mean, like, just that scene alone was kind of like, wow. Envy Warren is mentioning the Flash, but the Flash with his daughter, I still don't think it reached the level of this. And again, Anthony Starr, give that man an Emmy, please, for the love of God. If he doesn't win an award for his performance over these 10 episodes, somebody's
not paying attention. Yeah,
really not paying attention. you know, I mean, and don't get me, and he wasn't the only standout in the episode, but I think he's been such a standout for the entire season that, you know, even if he didn't have the best performance in this episode, his acting is still on 10 at all times. So it doesn't matter if anyone else actually did a better job in this episode. He's been so good throughout the whole season that, you know, his skill is just absolutely undeniable. No, I don't want to keep rambling on, so
No.
Get back to you.
So yeah, it's great to take a break here, and before we move on to the next subject, remind everyone, thank you so much for joining us live. Of course, everyone who is joining us in the archives as well. If you do enjoy this, we would appreciate you hitting that like button. Go ahead and subscribing. This is the last episode of Fans of the Boys, but of course, in just a couple of weeks, the Fandalorians will be back with you, of course, covering season 2 of The Mandalorian. And next month, also, we will be kicking off our monthly season flashback reviews of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We will be starting with season 1 next month, talking about our favorite episodes, the big impactful moments, what we pulled off of it, kind of a whole big discussion. Corey Shoemaker joining us with that as well. So it's going to be a full quadrant 4-screen fans experience, and that is starting next month. So excellent. I actually had a whole Mandalorian helmet that I've been working on that I wanted to bring out and show you guys, which was what I was looking around for, but I left it in the other room and I don't want to leave. But it looks like we're very excited. I know I'm just a big child here, really. All right, so let's get into our big chunky meat of this episode. We've been talking about all of the appetizers that really fill up, which I think are basically kind of the two big storylines, and that is the whole A-Train bit and his work at getting some info, avoiding the Fresca, but getting some info on Stormlander. Stormfront. Stormlander. Is that the kid? Sorry. My brain just freaked me out here. And of course, the big Becca coming and rescuing Ryan, and the end up with that. So let's I want to talk about A-Train. I think A-Train and them sort of at the end when we wrap up our last big kind of little reveal bit. So A-Train does a great thing, surprising everyone, dropping a big envelope, a big chunk of information on Stormfront, which really changed the direction of this episode. At this point, once it was revealed, any plans of secretly building our army is going to be out the window. Like I said, I didn't think that this reveal was going to be coming. But that is, of course, the Nazi files from the Church of the Collective. Of course, we all remember there was the mention early on that Stormfront was a member of the Church of the Collective years ago. And they, of course, had a little file on her, pics from her Nazi past, which blows everything up. And obviously, her first look at seeing this is going to cause her to run off. I do. Is this the moment when we talk about white genocide and her super creepy conversation with Ryan? Look, we can include that in there. That's also just making me sort of freak out in that. But especially in a way, it's kind of perfect because she's building that up. She's telling the story. It's a threat to our race, doing using all the language you would expect for an actual oppressed race, and then just turning around and calling it white genocide, which is not a thing at all.
Can we talk about the look on Homelander's face? Like what? What the hell are you talking about?
Again, shining a nice light on Homelander there. Like even him, like Wait a minute. That sounded weird for me, and I think I'm a god. Um, but again, especially building up that whole thing, her reaction on this coming out. I mean, sure, publicly, of course, she's going to freak out and want to kind of deal with that back and forth. But when she confronts Annie and everyone else, and she's talking, oh, these are deep fakes, and somebody did this. I don't know. Wouldn't she just sort of embrace the reality of what she's putting out there? I mean, I don't know.
Well,
This is one of the things that got a little weird with Stormfront. I mean, one, I was just surprised she came back so fast from Vought and landed right where she needed to be in order to cause the whole big finale. But that's just writing. I don't. Again, honestly, I'm just sort of curious what you guys think. In how her reaction, did it make sense? Was she just trying to hide it and play lines towards Andy? Is she believing that? I don't know. But
no, here's the thing.
Yeah,
she has learned the rule. Remember. She was friends with Goebbels, right?
mm-hmm.
Minister of propaganda. And he, famously said, the bigger the lie and the more often you tell it, the more people will believe it, right? And think about it. She was the one that was able to spin the whole thing with Homelander earlier in the season after he wound up accidentally killing that kid in Africa. So she was like, yeah, look, okay, fine. You've supposedly damaged my reputation, but yeah, I'll get my, all she had to say was, I've already got my people on it, debunking everything that you're talking about. So, like that was the only thing she was missing was, I got my interns debunking this right now.
Sure. So if she said that and then went into the deep fakes, then there would be that she was more obvious that she was mocking almost in a way of I've got all of this sort of handled, which I mean, I could see that may have been where she was coming from anyway. But what do we got here? Mark again mentioning that's love the portrayal of Stormfront as a modern racist because modern racists insist they're not racist. Also something that HBO's Watchmen did very well. And yeah, she believes the own craziness that she is weaving within her head. And probably sharing on 4chan. What about you, Rob? What's your take on Stormfront's Nazi reveal and reaction to?
Well, I mean, it was pretty. I guess is it irony that the social media that she used to propel herself to where she was the thing that took her down. But I took it like completely in stride because over the last 4 years, we have experienced how she reacted for the last 4 years. I have every single day. I feel like I hear something similar. And so I was pretty nonplussed. It was completely expected of this character to behave that way.
Right.
Because it's just, even in the face of overwhelming proof, to give any kind of confession or admittance of guilt is just, you just don't do it. You just don't. If you never say that you did something, then they can always think that there's some sort of reasonable doubt. And also to hold on to what few people might still believe in you.
Right.
And so I was just like, of course she can't, she won't, it doesn't matter. They could have her caught and, they could reveal that she was a Nazi while clubbing a baby seal over the head in Times Square. And she'd be like, no, this is not, none of this is what you see is happening. No.
If Seal tried to attack me.
It's all CGI. It's special effects. I'm actually doing a PSA against what I'm doing right now. It's everything is just the opposite. It's like I joke about, like, just the reverse psychology, just keep repeating the opposite back. and somebody will believe it eventually if you say it enough times. Or like what you said, you say it like Goebel said, or whatever. Yeah, the more you tell, the bigger the lie. The more you tell it, the more often you tell it, people are going to believe it. It's just she can't get out of that mode. She's been doing it. She's 100 years old. She's been saying it since she was, in short pants, probably. So it's just how she is. And I mean, I love that. I mean, I hate it, but I mean, you got to give it up for her commitment to it all. Even faced with a bunch of people who are going to beat the shit out of you. It just didn't do anything. I mean, think about how many times she had proof thrown at her. We're going to use this against you. She's like, I don't care. Doesn't matter. Nobody's going to believe you. I have the internet on my side. I have all, I'll just release 20 more gifts. It's just, that's just her mode. And like even up till the end, when she was, it never stopped. Even when she was laying there, whatever she was saying, I'm sure was just still more of the same.
Well, no, apparently that was translated, and while she was in Anakin Skywalker mode, Mustafar there, apparently she was reminiscing on a time where she, Fred Vought, and her daughter Chloe had went out and saw an apple tree, and they sat around the apple tree, and that was the first time that Chloe had ever seen an apple tree before. And so that was the thing that she was reciting in German. And it's funny though, because English is supposed to be partially derived from German. And when I was listening to what he was saying, what she was saying, I'm like, I thought she was saying that she got stabbed in the eye. That's what it sounded like. And I was like, nope, totally wrong. Totally wrong. But yeah, so she was reminiscing to about 80 years ago. Which
yeah, her little speech there. Yes. That was kind of a cool thing. She was beat so bad she went German again. I mean, you got to be pretty messed up, which she was, to have that kind of flashback.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, and of course, this all leads up to, again, one of the more ironic and awesome sequences is the girls get it done fight, where, of course, Stormfront versus, everybody versus Stormfront. Then the boys get knocked back. Then it's Annie versus Stormfront. Maeve shows up. We got Kumiko jumping in there. Again, especially since we're flashing back to the earlier 7 advertisement sequence. I think this was an awesome little beatdown. I think it was beautifully done. And I think one of the things that I enjoyed it the most is you didn't have the typical, when it's multi people on one, it's one person punches and then another person comes in and fight. This really was, everyone was doing it. They were knocking and pushing each other back and forth. There was a reason where everybody was. Honestly, this is probably one of the better multi-person fights that I've seen. I mean, just straightforward. It was a great scene. There was great fighting going on, effects, and I think all the timing and performance was really spot on.
Yes, this was the classic on the corner beatdown. Growing up in New York City during the 90s, I've seen plenty of those happen. So, the whole thing where you have like a crowd of 5 people and everyone gets one punch and then leaves. No, never happens in real life. Never happens in real life.
You look while they're punching one guy. There's one guy in the background who's just doing this, like waiting for his moment to jump in there.
Yeah, no, never happens in real life. In real life, there are multiple fists coming from multiple angles, and if someone hits the floor, that's when it's kick, stomp, stomp, stomp.
Yeah.
So, whoever directed that sequence has seen what a real fight looks like. Ah,
Absolutely. No, it was a good time. It was appropriate. I think we all felt better about it, just viscerally watching Stormfront get her butt kicked. And again, the fact it's the rest of the girls that are doing it was just awesome, because it just doesn't look right having a guy beat up a girl, even if the girl's technically stronger than the guy. Just visually, that doesn't work these days. I think this was the perfect choice. And I mean, you need a team to beat up someone as powerful as that.
and you know what the really good thing about it is that compare that with like the fight against Thanos at the end
Mm-hmm.
of Avengers Endgame, like well, right before the very very end uh, when it's Cap, Iron Man, and Thor, right? That's the whole big, knockdown, drag out. Okay, one guy punches and then he gets tossed halfway across the galaxy, and then the
Right.
other guy comes in and he gets smacked around, but he gets a couple of shots in. It was like, nope, this is all dogpile, and the person who's supposed to get the beat down gets the beat down until they can find a way out of there. So. And it also reminds me kind of like video game bosses. Like you ever play those fighting
Oh yeah.
games back in the day where it's like you think you're gonna beat the boss, and then like at the last second he just kind of scurries away, and you catch up with him like 3 or 4 levels later.
She's learned a few more moves. Like, all right, it's a new pattern. Damn it, I've got to learn on you. Very true. Very true. Rob, anything to add on to that before we get into Becca and Butcher?
No, it was the highlight of the episode. I really wanted to see her get kicked in the kitty by Kamiko. I really wanted to see that. But this worked too. Yeah, because I mean, it gave us it felt like, I don't want anybody to jump down my throat on this one, but speaking of the Thanos fight, right? And how a lot of people felt like all the girls showing up wasn't earned. Some people thought that wasn't an earned scene. That felt more like fan service for fan service sake. This, they had set up girls do it, the girls doing that thing. They had set it up. They had believed in it. They had not believed in it. They had at one point, at the beginning, Starlight liked Stormfront.
Mm-hmm.
And then to go and as we've seen her character evolve and how her relationships with their other characters evolved and changed, and the opinions changed, and they realized what a piece of shit she is, to go back and really show her that this is how girls do it, and it felt earned.
Yeah.
To have the guys step back and not join in the fight really and let the girls just really have at her. It really felt like an earned moment, and it was one of the best single. Yeah, I completely agree. Like all these people on one, it's very hard to film that kind of stuff and do it well. And this just really, it was like a street fight with superpowers. It was really, really great. And I hope that they, whoever does like the special effects and things like that, whoever, handles the smaller awards at things, this show needs to have a lot of people looking at the technical aspects of how they do the things on this show, because those people deserve, like, you've given enough effects awards to The Walking Dead and stuff like that. Look at this show and start showing how they did do things like this, like stunt coordination and things like that, because it was one of the most amazing fight sequences I'd ever seen on television.
Yeah.
Let alone a movie, because we've seen superheroes fight like Batman versus Superman, right? Where they all fight the crappy looking Doomsday. That didn't look anywhere near as good as this.
Well,
that's a big epic movie, and this is just a 50-minute long TV show episode. So
but I think you hit on something really important. There is a certain subtlety in a lot of the effects work that was done too. And BVS and stuff like this, every punch is throwing people through buildings, and this blowing up and this stabbing, and this is more like just like super powered people doing a beatdown. Some actions and moves were very normal looking, and then you get the throw toss off that send them into the car, and then they had to get back up and run back in. I mean, I think it was balanced, and I think the show does this well. I think from a practical standpoint is, if you don't have a lot of effect shots, that saves you money. And two, so make the effect shots that you have worthwhile. We don't need to see Homelander land every time. We only need to see it once or twice, unless it tells an important moment for the story. And I think they've balanced that out, that out really well. Even the massacre of the Vought guards, he burned one in half, and then you knew it was coming, and all that needed afterwards was him walking out completely covered in blood. We all understood exactly what happened in there. And I think, again, that subtle use of effects, I think you're right, Rob, really helps sell this fight from getting too over the top and still feeling like this is what these people would do.
Yeah, less is more.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's get into Becca, and I wanted to kind of hold this off towards one of the later things, because, and I don't know if my opinion is not necessarily a popular one here, is I love that Becca went out, and I love that they had the quick little scene of her escaping the Vought security guards, and she's sneaking away, and to me it totally makes sense that she would go to Butcher to get help, and it does give Butcher an interesting arc of him trying to do the right thing while being motivated to do the selfish thing, in regards to trying to help Becca but separate from her boy when she made the deal with Edgar, and then turning that around and saying, hey, go with Mother's Milk and get out of here. I'm gonna, I can't go with you because I wouldn't be the right person to be here. And then when that kind of goes south, to leading his family away and standing up, between certain death and his family in order to protect them. I mean, I love the little challenges that went on there, which is kind of a big roundabout way of getting to the point was, are we going to miss Becca? Because personally, she had no other ending. Maybe she could have left with Ryan and we wouldn't see her again. But I don't see any other ending for Becca other than dying and being that background motivation for Butcher, because he can't have the happy family. That would be the end of the show. It would be not the boys, but the boys minus Butcher, those other boys, these guys. I mean, you need him from a very important role there, and it's obviously the motivation of what happened to Becca that's driving him against Vought and specifically Homelander. So, was there any other possible way this could have ended out that would have actually kept those motivations and drives that are necessary for Butcher's character? Or, I mean, did you think that the family would have at least gotten away and then he would have just been like, well, they're alive, but still I'll get that Vought and Homelander? Or, I mean, I don't know. Did you guys see was there any other way this could have ended for Becca? Really?
Listen, they could have had her go with Mallory, but at the end of the day, look, I said it last week. She deserved what she got. Look, she had the opportunity to inform her husband years ago about what happened. That him believing that Homelander killed her ruined his life and was the driving force of his descent into madness to a certain extent, right? And then when he actually does find her, she's like, nope, get out of here. I want to raise Homelander's kid, who I've admitted raped me, and this is his son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, like, you feel bad for Butcher because he has been on this quest, uh, to try to bring some sort of normalcy back to his life. But as far as Becca goes, no, she made her bed. Now she has to lay in it literally forever. Um, yeah, so I mean, I know there's the whole trope of, they say, what is it, like fridge women or something like that, where there's like it comes from like a Green Lantern story where uh, like they took Green Lantern's girlfriend and put her in a fridge, and that's how he found her, and or something like that, and that's was his motivation to be a hero or something.
Okay.
Um,
Well, DC does the same thing then with Victor Freeze, is sticks his wife in a freezer, and she's his motivation to do his crimes, to find the thing. Is yeah.
right. And they say, "Oh, well, yeah, that's messed up because you're not giving the female character agency." But look, everyone plays their part. Becca Butcher's part was to be, in this particular story, her part was to be the motivating factor that drives Billy Butcher to do the many terrible things he's done to avenge her, and then to find out, well, oh no, she's still alive and she was complicit in all of this stuff. I'm like, no sympathy. She gets no sympathy because this man was ruined. He has killed people. He has blackmailed people. Mallory's grandkids are dead, and the genesis is her and her decisions. So no.
Okay. I do not disagree. All right. Rob, anything to add or interpret into that on Becca's fate?
What I'll say, like story wise, is that when he first makes the deal with Edgar, to I'm gonna take her, you guys can take the kid. Once he realized that he's not going to be able to convince her in any way to leave without the kid, her fate was sealed. For me, like there was no other way out for that character story wise. Right. Like they were, you could just see that it was driving that way, because if everything that he's done is for her, and he realizes that she's just not going to see things his way, he would have like still tried to figure out a way to do it. But story wise, you can't do anything else with that character other than maybe go with Mallory, but that just, she'd still be out there. There would still be some reason for Butcher to keep fighting for that relationship. So they really had to kill it. And so it's like, I don't really have any animosity or anything towards the character at all. It's some of different things that all these characters have done to each other leading up to this moment, and having protected her once from his dad, and then having him thinking he's going to be able to save her from his girlfriend, and then in the course accidentally killing her, was a great character moment for Ryan.
Yeah. And
so in her death, she did a lot more for the other characters than she had done while she was alive. Of course, the character doesn't know that. It's just us that see that, because there really was no other way out, and it's a little unfortunate, I think, but I think that it will drive Billy into a dark place. But also there'll be some sort of reason for him to try to come back out of it because I don't think we're done seeing him and the kid together. I think there's going to have to be some reason that he has to be a part of this kid's life.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just to keep him like realizing that he can't just be raised by, he can try to break the cycle of his own past, like how his father treated him and comparatively to how Homelander had nothing. There's got to be a middle ground. And I think that with her dying, it puts that in motion a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on it.
Okay. Well, actually, again, kind of interesting. A couple of interesting points there. One, in regards to how Stormfront gets kind of Vadered, taken out, and the death of Becca. The fact that the attempted motivation when teaching Ryan was focus on someone you hate, and he doesn't really hate anyone until, of course, Stormfront tries to hurt his mom, and that's what gives him the focus to use his powers. Obviously, we've got a very, obvious connection and ironic connection, especially through that. I was kind of curious with you guys, how did Becca die? I mean, when the arms got blown off, did that rip through her throat, do you think, or so on? Because I know her throat was sort of cut and she was bleeding out. And of course, Stormfront was crispified, as Mark had mentioned in there. We had the whole Vader thing, so she could come back with the whole face mask and breathing apparatus next year. Who knows how they'll have her return, because she's not dead. She lives a very long time, but not dead. But how did you guess? Any guesses, just real quick? How did that kill Becca?
I don't know. I think the main question is, how did she not end up just like Stormfront? She was right next to her, and with that amount of uncontrolled force, it's like if like one of her, if like blowing part of Stormfront off hit Becca, like a finger that was scorched, torch, like flew through her. I can't. It didn't seem to be like a lot of damage around the area.
Yeah,
so,
she died pretty-ish.
Yeah, it should have, the whole area where Stormfront and Becca were should have just been in flames, or at least torched. I guess he cauterized, like it cauterizes a little bit, because she was full on Anakin there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really don't. I just, something had to be some sort of shrapnel. It would have to be, but they just didn't explain it. It was a pretty convenient way to die, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, because honestly speaking, I was expecting for her to also be, damn near vaporized. But yeah, you know what probably wound up happening, because you got to think, Stormfront was holding her by the neck, right? So Ryan goes, he's using his vision. He blasts off her arm and legs, but the blast is so powerful that it probably sent Becca flying into one of the trees. She gets her one of the main arteries in her neck cut, and boom.
Yeah. Chat was wondering, Rena Dietrich mentions, why didn't she die in the car crash? Excellent. Envy agreeing, should have been burned.
Yeah, didn't die in the car crash. Probably seatbelts are good.
Yeah.
I mean, because think about it. Even Mother's Milk kind of got out. And honestly speaking, I was expecting him to at least stumble, because you got to figure the thing was upside down.
It's the Hollywood car crash. They could flip like 20 times. They just get up and they're a little shaken. Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I mean, I would imagine that, trying to get out of there, you would at least stumble over and fall like at least one time.
I'm guessing most likely a mild concussion at the very least.
Yeah. So,
all right. So, oh, sorry, my desk almost fell over. All right. So by the end here, of course, Becca's dead. Stormfront's wounded, speaking German, but captured. Homelander ready to commit vengeance and destruction. Stopped by Maeve, who brings out the recording of the flight, threatening, do anything wrong, we'll release it. No one will love you anymore, and that's all that you need. That's all that you care about. Which gets us to our kind of, again, almost happy finale. All of the charges against the boys are dropped. Ryan gets sent off with Mallory. I don't know if she's going to take over from a parent standpoint and like a grandkid replacement, or if that's going to Child Protective Services. Either way, is that the best environment for Ryan? That's a debatable point. But Butcher gets a job offer. Andy goes back to the 7. It's Homelander and says Stormfront sucks. Thank you to Homelander and or to Annie and Maeve for saying, and we're all happy, and I trust these people. Well, yeah, and we got to get into a little bit of the A-Train stuff, which I kind of skipped over there. So yeah, actually, let's get to A-Train before we finish on that wrap up. Talk about his story, because that does lead us to our final reveal and what Huey is heading off to. So yeah, we've got basically the Church of the Collective, A-Train. More Fresca. We have the Church of the Collective trying to get Deep and A-Train back in. Obviously, A-Train sees pretty early on this is just another little bullshit organization. He's going to use them to get in. He steals the file, drops it off to Maeve, and at the end is able to get back into the 7. Because, of course, Stormfront's gone. She has to be gone in order for him to get back, which is great for him. Not so great for the Deep, who, after all of his work and bringing A-Train in, still has to take a few more classes, and we'll see what happens. So Haley's Tusk mentioning Deep's villain origin story. That would be an interesting actual direction for them to take. But yeah, any thoughts on A-Train's bit? We've got the Deep being screwed over, classic line at Fresca, which is always true. But even more to the point is we get our big reveal of who our head popper was. And this was kind of an interesting one. Not necessarily someone was I expecting, but oddly, who they told us at the very beginning it was. When our CIA contact gets her head exploded, everyone freaks out. Frenchie asks, who could have done this? Who could do this? The very next shot after that, Congresswoman Victoria Newman. They told us right off the bat, but didn't reveal to us until the very end. Kind of playing both sides against the middle, puts things in a really interesting place depending on how you see things. So, Rob, why don't you lead us off with Victoria Newman as a, I don't know, villain playing both sides, doing her own thing? What did you think about this reveal about Victoria Newman being our head popping soup?
Well, in retrospect, like again, I go back to the simplest thing. They were doing the simplest things, really, but they were throwing all these things at us. We were wondering, is it Stan Edgar? Is it the head of the church? Is it somebody that works for the church? Is it blah blah blah? They got us looking at all these other directions, and not looking at the obvious, which they, now that you pointed out, like they really did play it all over on all of us. But look, my feeling on it is indifference. I have no interest in our lives, at least how my life is. I feel like I am drowning in politics. And so the whole political angle that they've taken this whole year has disinterested me. I had no interest in it because I'm living it every single day. And so to have her be the head popper, I literally just, I saw it happening. As soon as she and him were talking, I went, it's her. They didn't even get 10 seconds into that conversation. I went, it's her. And I was, and that's not going to say, oh yeah, I was right. I just didn't care. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with it, but I'm politicaled out. And so was it cool to see him get his head popped? Because he's just sitting there all like getting his deals all done and everything, and he thinks everything's great, and he's telling Deep, your toxic personality, and I'm sure some people that have Scientology ties that if their relationship with that religion didn't end well, get to see some kind of sick satisfaction in watching a religious leader's head get exploded. Great. I didn't care. I'm sorry. I just didn't care.
Okay. Don, any thoughts on Congresswoman Newman's head popping superpowers?
I mean, well, listen, first off, since you mentioned A-Train, the fact that he ran into the car,
that was awesome.
Crashes. Oh my God, hilarious! They're sitting there having their little heart to heart. Him telling her about why he's so into Billy Joel, and all that, and he just pops in. Hey, see that? She's like, oh, that would have been anybody, and because for one, they already know that he doesn't like the two of them.
Yeah.
Right. And so for him to pop into the car like that, it's like, oh my God, he's probably about to kill us. So, but then he gives them the info for them to expose Stormfront, and then there's the scene where Alistair Adana brings in A-Train and Deep, and he's like, we had someone steal an important PDR, and he's like, and he's sitting there like, oh man, I wonder who that could have been. It's like, yeah, well, isn't that right, A-Train?
Dun dun dun.
The Deep was just like, oh no, dude, I had nothing to do with that. Fuck this guy. He so wants to get back into the 7 that if they said, hey, you know what? If they would have said drown A-Train right now and you're in, he would have done it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because for him, his whole thing is, yeah, he's bought into the system, but not the ideology. So for him, it's like, look, if the system works, then I'll pretend as though I'm into the ideology. And that's why he freaked out on him after he told him that, hey, yeah, we gotta get you into some more classes before we can get you back into the 7. Yeah, but the Congresswoman being the big bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one was a shocker. Yeah, because last week with the whole thing with the head popping, I was thinking it was Alistair Adana. If it wasn't him, then it was somebody that worked for him or something, and he made it seem as though she was working for him and was like, oh yeah, you're one of the good ones. And then the next thing you know, boom, I'm like, oh, holy shit. So, then who does she even work for? Is she on her own? Does she work for Stan Edgar?
Hmm.
Is this a government thing? Is it possible that is it possible that someone else has their own version of Compound V that she's used? I mean, there are so many questions to be asked about this. Like, I mean, and then the thing about it too is, so her eyes turned white when she did that. When she did that to him.
Right.
But in the scene in Congress, during the hearing, I don't remember seeing her eyes turn white. So then the question begs, was that just for the reveal, or is it a possibility that she wears contacts to hide that?
Sure. I would say that it is probably much like the Transformers, who have two modes of transportation. The very cool slow motion one, and the one when they're actually in combat, when they got to go like from robot to robot mode to car mode super quick. I think that's her thing, is she's got the normal reveal and then the, oh shit, I have to do this secret, plot driven, you don't see it unless you're looking reveal. Or mode of her powers. So yeah, that is kind of a funky little area, and I think that's been commented by quite a number of people I've noticed on social media is going, well, I like that, but we saw her and she was scared running, and people's heads were popping randomly, and she seemed to have to really concentrate when Alistair's head blew up. So I get that. I think they try to just make that reveal a little more dramatic. In that sense, I'm sure they'll play with however those particulars go in. But I think you hit an interesting point on the motivation standpoint, because she's a soup, and I would think that Vought, for the most part, knows where all of their soups are. They know who took Compound V as a kid. They got to keep records on this. So the likelihood of Stan Edgar or someone at Vought not knowing that she's a soup would be kind of surprising. Unless, like you said, there's some other underground thing, but then how long has she had these powers and whichever. But they said something kind of early on in the first scene when they talked about Compound B being let out. I think it was even brought up that Vought's behind this. Oh, one of their own guys got killed. Of course, that was A-Train's nemesis. The response being, "Oh, they did that to cover them up, to cover their own ass, so they wouldn't get, looked at. Oh, look, we lost one of our own guys. Of course, we're not behind this." Now, by the end of this, Newman is in charge of the new superhero. I don't say registration, but the new congressional committee that's looking after Vought and the soups, that's kind of regulating that. And of course, Mallory is taking over the CIA version of such, which is, like I said, in some ways, this is putting the boys back to where they are at the beginning in the comics, as an actual working for Mallory with the CIA. But if she is in charge of regulating soups, and Vought's in charge of distributing Compound V and making the soups, having those two parties work together would be a masterful move on Edgar's part. Because then, whether the Compound V is freely given out or it's culled back and controlled, he controls all of the distribution channels and connections and such like that. So he kind of wins both ways. And this would be a motivation then for the boys to come in saying, hey, there's the congressional oversight, but maybe they're not doing their job right. Now Mallory's got a motivation to bring Butcher back and say, hey, can you look at these things? Because I can't trust everybody in the government here ourselves. So it does kind of get us into an interesting, albeit more political bent. But it would be a really smart move on Edgar's if Newman was kind of his ace in the hole.
Yeah,
Probably setting up her as a soup president of the United States.
No, I could see it going that direction for sure.
She's obviously he was going to work at her political headquarters, and she kind of feels like like she's this show's Cortez, the up and coming young politician who just helped get a huge victory. She's been in the middle of all this, and she keeps overcoming it, and she's been the star of all this, and she keeps coming out on top, and she keeps getting all these accolades, and it just feels like it's preparation for bigger office, so that Stan Edgar would have Elizabeth Shue's character wanted the soups in the military, but what if you had the head of the country as the soup in charge?
Yeah, that would make total sense. And Mercenary X84 mentioning here in the chat that Edgar was watching Newman on TV, which obviously important from just a Vought standpoint, watching your enemy, what they're doing, but they're always very smart in dropping hints like that. So, I think that could exactly be what we're going to be looking at going into season 3, which gets us to our big final point, which is right. We're at about 90 minutes here. So I think this is the perfect time to just take our brief little look into the future. As you're mentioning, she's heading up the new soup committee. And of course, Huey, now wishing to stand on his own 2 feet, is going into work for her. So this does give a man on the inside. How long is it going to be until his trusted expectations and hope for a different future get all smashed and destroyed? And obviously Mallory had offered Butcher the job at the CIA, which we're pretty sure that he'll take. And that's probably where we'll see our boys at the beginning of season 3 working for the government. So what do you guys think we're heading for with season 3? And do any of the moves kind of surprise you? Maybe Starlight going back to the 7. Is that what she wants to do? Is that the smartest place for her to be? And of course, Stormfront, they imply very straightly that she is not dead, but could be living a long time and is seriously messed up. Like I said, Anakin Vader way. Are we gonna? I think Aya Cash, I did see something about her coming back for season 3, but that could be a small role. What do you guys think with all of these bits, or what do you want to see? What would you like to see? Where do you think we're going with next season? Don, why don't you lead us off?
Well, obviously, Vought is going to need to rehab their image. So, I mean, I think this is where Soldier Boy will come in. Vaught's
right.
Captain America, right? So, because Homelander, I think, is going to be not toxic necessarily, but remember, he was out front with Stormfront with the whole pushing Compound V and more soups. So Homelander's obviously going to need to take somewhat of a back seat to a certain extent. But he's still going to be looking for love from the public, of course.
Right.
And as far as Huey, it's going to be interesting when he finally finds out about Victoria Newman.
Yeah.
Because, like he's going to be the dude that sees her explode somebody's head. Like he's going to wind up seeing it, and he's going to wind up freaking out and calling up Butcher, and then that's going to get the boys obviously back in, because they're going to be, wondering like, okay, well, how much does she know about them? Because remember, she exploded that CIA agent's head in front of all of them.
Right.
Right? So, and you know what? I'm gonna have to go back and watch that episode because, like, it looks like she needs to be in line of sight in order to make that happen. So I'm wondering if there might have been some clue as to like how far away she might have been or where she might have been standing, or whatever in relation to where the boys were. But anyway,
Right.
Stormfront. I mean, look, I think Stormfront is going to wind up being some sort of prisoner. She's not going to be back. I don't think she's going to be back in any way as she was in this season.
Mm-hmm.
They might put her in some sort of what facility. She gets to talk all kinds of crazy or whatever, and Stan Edgar's like, look, we can't rehab your image this time around. Sorry, it's too late. Yeah, and I think there's going to be, look, we got to have and Maeve and Starlight versus Black Noir again. I don't think Black Noir is gonna take that lion down.
No, he can't disappear after all of this.
No, but I think after he gets out of his coma, he's gonna be like, oh no. The two of you two. Yeah, somebody's got to catch these hands. Yeah. I mean, other than that's pretty much all I got as far as my predictions for season 3.
Okay, all right. What about yourself, Rob? We're I don't know, maybe tempered expectations, but where do you think we're heading off to, and what would you like to see next season?
Well, I think, like I said, I think that they're setting her up for a higher political office, and it'll just be how and when does Huey find out that she's behind the head popping, and that if they don't stop her from going further, in her career, she could be leading the whole country, and she could pop anybody's heads that she wants,
right?
Sitting across from other foreign dignitaries, other world countries that you have a problem with or whatever. And then, bringing the boys in, I would see that would have to be the inciting incident to get everybody back together. Stormfront, I feel like she's just going to be relegated to maybe like a guest star where maybe Homelander goes and visits her, and we get to see her in some sort of weird, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I don't know how Darth Vader they're going to go on her, but I think it'll be like he'll be going there for some sort of weird catharsis, like he had the cabin set up with Stillwell's thing,
Right,
where he'd go there for some sort of like I don't know, closure maybe. And somebody, what was it? Simba Trey was talking about the show ending at season 4 because like we keep saying you can't hold back Homelander from snapping forever. It's coming. He's on the top of a building, jerking off, saying he can do whatever he wants.
I can do whatever I want.
So, and it's he just has that just absolute desperate, a man on the edge, literally, I guess, where he's lost the thing that the one thing keeping him from killing everybody. And how does and he's going to have to like play ball for a while. They're going to try to clean up their image, which means he actually has to be a superhero. He can't just be, or there's probably going to be a couple of comedic moments where he goes too far and he's like, what? Okay. Like I'm learning, but in the end, I mean, I don't think psychologically he can handle all that. And if he has to take a backseat to somebody they're preparing to be a real superhero, like a Captain America type, all those things psychologically are just going to be too much. And if it's just a matter of time. So I don't know. I don't really know what else to predict. I mean, the show just comes at you. I mean, leaving the deep out there to be really upset that he just keeps getting passed by. I mean, honestly, all I want from that guy is to keep trying and failing in epic fashion. But maybe in one of his tries, he'll accidentally fail upwards. He'll accidentally do something that had no intention of being the actual outcome of what he wanted, but he'll somehow get what he wanted by messing up.
Actually, that would be the only way I'd see Deep succeeding, would be in that way, the way they play the character. So that's I think that's a definitely good call.
And you know, the whole thing with the 7, I mean, it's gonna be weird because it almost feels like nothing has changed except that they all know all their cards are on the table. So it's gonna be a lot of paranoia. So I don't know, like it's gonna be crazy, and who knows? Maybe Homelander won't be the first one to snap.
That's very true. That's very true. You're right. They're all going to be there, just knowing each each of them are all full of shit.
Also,
but they've got to constantly put a good face out.
11's out there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
She's a big question mark wandering around. Maybe she's going to do nothing. Maybe she's just going to go to upstate New York and raise cows. I don't know.
Sure. Well, that's who's going to stop the head popper, is the head popper will have their body popped. And does that have their...
Yeah, we got to get somebody that doesn't just pop heads, pops the whole thing.
And Wes, you're evil. Once you popped, you can't stop. Stop that. Stop that. It's horrible. It's horrible and awful. Well, yeah. See, the interesting thing with Stormfront is, they seem to have implied the fact that she lives a long life. And so, torture is going to be living like this. And yet they've also implied that she can heal in a certain sense, because when Homelander was hitting her with the beams, it wasn't like they were just bouncing off. They seemed to be doing damage, but then she would recover off of it. So they could take Stormfront in any number of directions. They could have her as just a side character doing the Clarice call, the Silence of the Lambs bit in jail there, and being some sort of evil advisor to Homelander or to anyone else, the secrets of the dark side. She could come back in some ways. It could be the battle of changing image, though obviously since they put everything kind of on her, there's not much of a recovery out of that. So yeah, I'm going to leave Stormfront personally as kind of a wild card, because they twist things around and make different things up. So I think they could take that kind of in any different direction. Starlight, I guess, does want to be a hero, so it makes sense that she's worked hard to get in the 7 where she can try and do something good in the midst of all the BS. But honestly, with her on the run for most of this season, that kind of surprised me, or for half of the season, I guess. Felt like longer. I don't know how long that she's going to be here. So, there's got to be some sort of fracturing of the 7 probably coming up soon. And maybe that opens things up for Deep to fail upwards. But yeah, outside of that, I think you hit a good point there, Rob, with the political point of putting Newman in an area where she could start to grow and go for higher office. And that would be something that would be good for Vought. Obviously, some of the conflict between all of that's going to be what is probably driving a lot of next season. And again, with Becca dead, then Butcher still has that motivation to try and get revenge on, the company that did him wrong and did his wife wrong now. And the Deep is now running the church, I guess, with Alistair dying there, that he couldn't tell anybody that Deep was being toxic. So does Deep fail upwards in the church now? Because it kind of ended with him doing a little church PSA there. So yeah, I don't know. I also, it's hard for me to predict because I thought they were going a whole different direction with this finale, setting up kind of a big battle, and they cut the knees out of that to sort of wrap the season up in a normal storyline season wrap up. So I can't say that I'm disappointed in the way that it ended, and certainly there were some great moments. I guess I was just surprised because I thought they were going elsewhere, and it seemed to be, especially the way they were building up Stormfront, the fact that she's kind of taken out of the picture so quick, kind of surprised me. Which is again why I'm still thinking maybe they're hiding something for next season.
Well, I think that they needed to stop running. We've been running the whole season. So they had to have some way to pump the brakes on all our characters so we could do like almost a soft reboot and be, it's not like everything is changed and yeah, people look like they're moving on, but we needed the boys to be able to operate again in a different fashion that wasn't so automatically dire and always on the run. So in that respect, I do like how they ended this. It just didn't go anywhere that I really thought they were going by the beginning of the season. And by the end of it, like I said, I didn't really like the political stuff, but I think we're going to see a lot of crazy stuff. That's not just going to be that storyline. They never just do one thing. But I think, I think we're just seeing what they're going to be capable of. And again, Anthony Starr, man, the sky is the limit for what he can do with that character. And so again, just keep watching what they're going to do with that guy. Like, I feel like he's the center of this show's universe, and it's everybody else reacting to his, whatever he's going to do. So I'm excited. I just, like I said, I think the waiting 4 or 5 days and everything else has kind of really tempered my expectations going into this, so that I'm a little less like about it than as everybody else. But I do think that this is a great way to relaunch the show almost, and get back to some of the early stories from the comic book that they did, like going after soups that are like in the beginning of the books, going after the younger groups of superheroes. That are screwing up, low level stuff that they're actually sanctioned to do, things like that. So I don't know.
Oh, I would love for an opener for next where they're like a montage of them taking out low level bad soups that are messing up, and just like, this is what the boys are doing now. They're successfully battling the soups, especially with all of Frenchie's wonderful little creations. No, I kind of like that. I agree with you on that one. All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers everything. God, thanks everyone. We're hitting an hour and 40-minute mark, a long talk, and so many of you have stayed with us in the chat, throwing out questions, throwing out comments. Simba Trey, West Sager, Mercenary X84, Haley's Tusk, NV Warren. Let me flash back to people that were in here earlier, because I know Mark was in here, Enchantment of Eternity, Rena Dietrich, everybody who joined us in the chat, everyone who is watching us in the archives. Thank you so much for sticking with us for this whole show and this whole season. And of course, there is more content coming your way. Fandalorian's coming out the end of the month, plus our Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D. season rewind starting next month, starting, of course, with season 1. So still lots of fun content coming up your way. Hopefully you come back to us and check it out. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. So let's start from the East Coast. Mr. Don Willie, why don't you say goodbye to everyone? Any last thoughts? Let people know where to find you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you to this guy right here for having me. And yeah, I mean, I can't believe it's over already. Can't wait for next season. Obviously, you'll be able to find me here when we do Fandalorians. And if you happen to be into Star Trek Lower Decks, you can find me tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, on Enchantment of Eternity's channel, where we will be discussing season 1 of Lower Decks, and sooner or later, but probably later than sooner, House of the Dragon bios on my channel. And yeah, so Rob, I think it is your turn to take it away.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at reviews_gun. On Twitch, we are always playing games at Smirking Gun Plays, all one word. And on my channel, Smirking Gun Reviews. On YouTube, we've got Old Shield new reviews. The last one of those for a little while is coming up tomorrow. I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from those so I can focus on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Stuff that we're going to be doing here on this channel. Got to give myself a little more time to start diving into those past seasons so that we can do some good videos for you guys. We've got Lovecraft Country's finale coming up this week. That review is up, and we're also doing Halloween reviews on the channel. As many as I can pump out for the rest of the month. We just did Resident Evil. Tomorrow we're doing John Carpenter's Vampires from 1998. We're doing Fright Night. We're doing The Addams Family. We're doing 30 Days of Night and other movies as well to do watch parties and then review afterwards. We also just put up The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen on Saturday. So check all that stuff out as well. And then you never know, whatever sits my fancy, I'll make a video about. So take it away, D.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Yeah, Rob does a lot of kind of thematic reviews and sequences. He's been doing a lot of the watch parties things. If that is your thing, definitely check that out. And
I forgot.
Yeah.
Also, I'm breaking one of my rules. One of the same rule that you have, which is I don't review episode to episode. I don't do episode to episode reviews on bingeable shows. Shows. But because the Haunting of Hill House had a big impact on me when it came out, that I am doing episode to episode reviews of The Haunting of Bly Manor. We're up to the first 3 episodes. The 4th episode will be up on Thursday if anybody's interested in that show. Because normally I don't do that, but I am breaking the rule for this one. So sorry, I just forgot about that.
No. When the shows are worthwhile, that's always good to have exceptions to your rules because, yeah, sometimes it's hard to do binge stuff and everybody watches them differently. But look, I just discovered The Outsider from HBO, which came out in January. So, that's a great thing to go in. So any of these reviews that you have, if you haven't checked out the show yet, awesome. Go watch Haunting of Bly Manor. You can check that out at your pace and then head over to Rob's channel and you can catch those reviews. Of course, I told you what all the things that I'm doing here. That's where you can expect it. This is where you can find me. Of course, you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at Darren Jakes. More on Twitter, less on Instagram. But we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us live, joining us in the discussions. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you all next time. Take it easy, and we're out of here. All right, everyone. Bye-bye.